Order the Public Works and Safety Committee meeting of the Watertown City Council, Monday, March 19, 2018. The first item on the agenda is approval of the agenda. Have a motion and second? Moved by Bueller, second by Y. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item 2 is approval of the minutes from the February 20th, 2018 meeting. Is there a motion and second? Moved by Lallam, second by Danforth. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed? Motion carries. Item 3, authorization for the mayor to sign agreement for engineering services in the amount of $54,900 with Houston Engineering, Inc. for the project solicitation and construction administration for the Watertown Regional Landfill Project number 1818. Is there a motion and second for approval? Moved by Danforth, second by Bueller. And Mike, you can go ahead and talk to us about this.
Sure. As mentioned, this agreement is for $54,900. That is $5,100 below the $60,000 that we budgeted for these services. It includes $7,000 for surveying and construction observation services provided by the local firm of Scott Engineering under the direction of Houston, and an additional $47,900 of construction services provided by Houston Engineering. The estimated contract cost is based upon Houston's rate schedule and the estimated hours. The final cost could vary a little bit depending on how the project goes, but Houston is the firm that has completed the design engineering on the project. So we'd like to ask for your approval of this amendment to add construction services.
All right. They're doing a fine job. We haven't had any issues, right? Are there any questions or discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thanks, Mike. Item number 4, authorization for the mayor to sign agreement for engineering services in the amount of $29,500 with Clark Engineering for project design plans and specifications for the 3rd Avenue Northeast Culvert Replacement Project number 1811. I'll look for a motion and second. Moved by Lallam, I think. Second by Bueller. Was that a Danforth? Danforth and Bueller. Okay, Shane.
Thank you, Mayor. Can you put my screen up on the or on the board there? 3rd Avenue East is right here where it crosses the unnamed tributary to Willow Creek. That is where three culvert system currently exists, and none of the existing pipes are functioning at a high level. So we've had this on our budget to replace those with either a precast box culvert system or a multiple pipe system. So with that, we're asking for the design engineering with this contract so that we can get plans and specifications to go out for bidding.
Thank you. Any questions or comments?
So in that determination, are we looking to do, they'll make the recommendation whether we should do a box culvert or pipe? Is that
Correct.
what we're looking at on that?
They're evaluating how to size it and what configuration to use. Yep.
Okay.
Any other comments or questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 5 is authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement with HR Green Engineering for construction engineering services related to the Highway 81 and 20th Avenue South sewer relocation project number 1805. Is there a motion and second for approval? Moved by Lallam, second by Y. Okay, Mike?
Yes, this contract amendment before you, as mentioned, is for construction engineering services on Highway 81 and 20th Avenue South intersection. What it does is it relocates the sanitary sewer in advance of the construction of the roundabout by the state DOT at this intersection. This amendment adds $13,600 to the original agreement for design engineering, which was for $19,800. So the total contract cost is $33,400. I guess I'd point out that this project was not budgeted for. It's being financed out of cash reserves, as the timing just didn't allow for budgeting. The need for this project arose when it was determined that we would need to relocate the sanitary sewer prior to the roundabout construction project to get the manholes out of the traffic lanes. And so at the same time, then the sanitary sewer through the roundabout intersection is also being upsized for future flows. We're increasing about 200 foot of sewer from 12-inch to 15-inch, and then we're extending the landfill force main to the north side of the roundabout. So the total project cost right now with engineering and construction, the estimate is $134,678.60 out of cash reserves.
Thanks, Mike. Any questions or comments? Councilman Vilhauer?
Not specifically on this, but what is the general timetable for the roundabout work?
The work should be completed in total by August sometime before school starts.
Okay, and what happens to, how's traffic being routed or handled during that time then?
Well, it'll be completely shut off from the highway to the east, and they do have a little road to get around on the west side. Any other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Thank you. Item number 6 is authorization for the mayor to sign resolution number 18-10 for the bridge inspection program for use with the SD-DOT retainer contracts. Since there's no details, I'll wait on the motion and second for Shane to say who's doing this and stuff.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. We decided to propose that Infrastructure Design Group do our annual bridge inspections. We do half of our bridges each year. They did the inspections last year as well. The other candidate that we used to use doesn't have a current structural engineer on staff, so we're headed a slightly different direction. But anyway, we're proposing to use Infrastructure Design Group again this year, and next year we'll probably request proposals for this type of inspection work going forward. So with that, any questions?
All right, so is there a motion and second for approval? Moved by Danforth, second by Lallam. Any questions or comments?
I would make one just
Sure.
budgetary comment. The city only pays 20% of the total cost. The state covers 80%. I just wanted to be clear that this isn't just a city participating project.
Right, thank you. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 7 is authorization for the mayor to sign an agreement with WSP for hydrological and geological environmental services for the landfill. I'll get a motion and second for approval. Moved by Y, second by Lallam. Okay, Mike?
Yes. WSP USA Incorporated, formerly known as Legate, Brashers, and Graham. This agreement is to have them to continue to provide the environmental services monitoring at the landfill. On August 31st of 2017, Legate, Brashers, and Graham merged into WSP USA Incorporated with offices in 12 states. LBG, as we like to call them for short, they provided these services for the Watertown landfill for many years, as far back as 1995, as well as about 8 other South Dakota landfills, last I counted. And so the 3 individuals in the Sioux Falls office that have provided these services to Watertown since around 1995 will continue to provide the same services under the company name of WSP USA Incorporated. The services include obtaining groundwater elevations for the monitoring wells quarterly, obtaining groundwater samples semi-annually, spring and fall, and submitting the samples to Test America for analytical analysis. And then while they're grabbing the samples, they'll do field measurements for temperature, pH, conductivity, and dissolved oxygen. They also monitor the methane gas concentrations at the landfill perimeter and at the landfill structures quarterly. And the big item is they do a statistical analysis of all this groundwater data, come up with their recommendation. They submit that to me for review, and then they forward it on to the State Department of Environment and Natural Resources solid waste program. And this agreement would begin with the first sampling event for 2018 and would end with the completion of the 2020 groundwater report, which would be March of 2021. The estimated cost of this contract, including the laboratory analysis, is $17,870 based upon their rate structure and the scheduled tasks. And I guess the cost could vary a little bit if the state was to require some additional sampling or some additional analysis. And I would also point out that our landfill permit requires us to have this service. Section 5.03 groundwater monitoring requires a qualified groundwater scientist provide these services to us.
All right, thanks, Mike. Any questions or discussion?
Is there an increase from last year, or is this
It's from
in line?
2015 would be the last one. It's about a 6%.
Is that in line with what we've had in the past?
Yeah, yep.
Other questions? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 8 is discussion of the Wheel-In Alley Assessment Project, number 1801. Shane?
Thank you, Mayor. Can you put, there you go. The this year's proposed alley project was one that we proposed last year as well, and it didn't get completed last year due to lack of support from the residents along the project. I don't know if anybody's here, probably not here tonight because we're talking about percentages, but we received 56% of the property owners approve it, and that's based on dollar amount or frontage, however you want to equate that. The no's were 42% and no response from 2%. So there's only 5 property owners. So we got 2 yeses, 2 no's, and a non-response. So with that, I guess I'm asking for the comfort level of the council, and if they wish to push forward with a assessment project, or if we're uncomfortable with that. 55% is what the adjoining properties would have to get together to stop the project if we did decide to go forward. So we have surpassed that, at least in by 1% on this project. So that's why I'm asking for some input.
What is, Jane, what is the primary reasoning for wanting to get this done?
Well, we've received a
request,
petition
yeah,
from the adjoining property owners to improve it. Some of the complaints we hear is that the traffic that the Wheel-In generates making deliveries does create a maintenance, more maintenance than normal in a gravel alley. And you can see that a portion of the alley is already paved from this point to the west. So really it's from this point here all the way to the block on the east side of the project. And the little piece that I'm not getting a response for is this little tiny bit here. Their assessment would be $315. I'm sorry. I don't know how to.
It was wiggling. You just had
Okay.
to know where he was looking.
All right.
It's on the
I'll try to be
west
more
end,
exaggerating.
on the north side.
So
There's
this
a
is the little one that I didn't get a response on. This one is a yes up here on the top side. Wheel-In was a no. The Olsons, who own 2 lots to the southeast, are yes, and the one to the north is a no. So I'm right at above 56%, right at 56% yeses, and I just want a consensus if you wish for me to go forward with it. Otherwise, it's not worth my effort.
Shane, what do you mean 56%?
Okay,
We're at 50.
based
aren't
on the amount of footage on the alley, the ones that will say they want to go forward with it, it's 56% of the project.
we? Okay, so what does the requirement call out? Is it of the adjacent landowners, or is it of the property? For
Well,
the
it'd be
56%?
one and the same because the estimate's based on the footage.
Per linear foot of property ownership. You have to have 55% can overturn it, and they won't get that if 56% voted yes. But there's a relatively high percentage of no. We don't usually see that much no in an assessment project, you often see no answer. So that's why he's concerned. This is kind of out on a limb.
My feeling is what I've typically seen of people that don't respond, they aren't in favor of it. That's usually what I see when we just ran into that on another issue a couple weeks ago. I would be hesitant to do it based on the 50-50 split at this point.
It's
in
not
regard
50-50.
to
He's got
of the owners. The two that are yes, two that are no, and one saying no.
Yeah. So just as many people don't want it as do.
That's why I'm asking the question, because I want to know if this is enough for us to push a project forward, or if I should just let it go away.
Councilman Roby.
I respect the point Mike's making and what you're doing with this, Shane. Just let me throw out there for discussion. If that is the concern, then why don't we change the rule? If 55% is the barrier or the hurdle to clear, then why don't we change the rule if that's...
That's set by law.
I think
The assessment process is set by state law.
Okay.
And for overturning, and typically the council can move forward with the project at this point, feeling fairly well assured that they won't have it overturned, because 56% has said yes. But there's still a pretty high percentage of people that said no. And the council's been hesitant in the past to do an assessment project, because if you said no and the process goes through, you still get that assessment on your taxes. So it's a quandary.
Which owners said no? Shane, can you point those out on the map, please?
okay. The Wheel Inn property said no, and this property to the northeast said no, and the unidentified or no response was this small property piece here on the northwest. The others are yeses.
So of the 4 property owners that have stated their position on it, in each case, one's a business and one is a residence?
One yes is a business, one no is a business, and the other 2 are residential properties.
Okay, so it's one each way you go. I do believe it becomes, this is a little bit odd because they're both that way, but I think an assessment project is different for a business than it is for a homeowner also. I think a business has a way of recouping those costs, and it's a benefit per se to their business if that's what they want. Whereas a resident has no, other than if it isn't a benefit to them, there's no recovery of that. I think so if you're on a fixed income, you really can't do anything, whereas a business has the ability to justify it. And that's where I become, it's difficult to put that on a homeowner when they don't want it. And especially when we're sitting here with, I'm not going to talk about the linear footage, but of the 5 that we have, the 4 that have responded, we got 2 that say yes and 2 that say no. I guess I would be very hesitant to say that we should move forward with that. I would leave that up to, at that point, I would leave it up to whoever the petitioner is to go back and see if they can get in touch with those that have said no or the one that didn't respond and see where they can get with them.
There is no resolution of necessity yet, right?
No.
On this? So if you said yes tonight, it's not a done deal. It goes to a public hearing where everyone has the ability to come and say their piece, and then the full council will act if you say yes. If you say no, Shane will probably just call the owner and see if you can get some more.
We've quietly done that because I was trying to get as much support before I even came here. I mean, actually, ironically, one of the people that said no this time was one of them that said yes last year. So we were a little bit concerned that we hadn't heard anything from him, and so we took a couple more weeks of our time to try to track him down and get an answer. And I'll be honest with you. His is the highest assessment on the roll, and he said no this year. He said yes last year. So that's.
What's the per foot assessment?
It is in the range of $32 to $35 a foot.
And these are how many feet? Like,
The largest one is 150 feet, and the proposed assessment is $4,250. That's the largest.
so are you looking for an actual motion or action from the Public Works Committee?
Well, I was hoping to get some direction. I can move this to the necessity, but I didn't want to take up council time if that wasn't a strong support.
Glenn? Oh, sorry.
I guess I share the same concern that Mike's expressing, but I guess by the same token, for the sake of those that are in support of this, I'd still be in favor of moving it forward and then having the public discussion, and then we can, at that point, make our decision. Would be my thought.
I agree. I think we need to do that as well, Shane. I think we need to have this at the full council as well.
Okay, I'm fine with that. The only caveat to that is we get very poor attendance at those meetings. So we will stress to these folks that they should attend if they want to give us their best intentions on this project so that they can have their input. Thank you. I'll push it forward then. Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is authorization to advertise for bids and for the 20th Avenue Southeast Bridge Preservation Project number 1709. And this is in the budget, so it's really not a lot of discussion needed. There are two bridges, right?
No, just one. Just one bridge. And it is in the big grant, so we get 80% reimbursement from the state when the construction's completed. It's the one over the Big Sioux River, not the one over Willow Creek.
Okay. Is there a motion and second for approval? Moved by Bueller, second by Y. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed, motion carries. Item number 10 is authorization to advertise for bids for the gun range improvements project number 1619. And we talked about this one quite a bit. I think most people know where it is and what it is. Could I have a motion and second for approval? Moved by Danforth, second by Lallam. Is there any discussions or questions about this project? Seeing none, I'll ask for action. All those in favor signify by saying aye. Those opposed signify by saying nay. Motion carries. Item number 11 is discussion on potential city participation for the Stromseth East Side Edition from J&J Land Sales, LLC. And they've sent a letter requesting that the city participate in the cost for completing a subdivision. And generally, while our ordinance says that the developer is responsible for all necessary improvements required in order for a subdivision to take place. And in this case, there's a lot of wetland, and there's a drainage way that it crosses, and there's roads going through wet areas, which are all very expensive and don't have a lot of development potential next to those parts of the road. So I suggested that if the developer had interest in, he needed to know if the city was going to share the cost of this project with him, that the time to get an answer would be before he spent a lot of money designing the project. So he hasn't gotten to that point yet, and he's written you this letter. So hopefully you've had a chance to read it. Shane, do you want to summarize? And Jamie's here. If you have a question.
Sure. I'm going to go to the GIS just a moment. Kind of talk about the overview of the project here just briefly. Is my screen up on? Okay. So the Stromseth East Side Edition really has connectivity to Willow Creek Drive down here by the bridge over Willow Creek. The roadway extends north across and crosses Willow Creek to the north, and then ultimately it meanders up through, and currently the right-of-way that exists ends up here on the north end of the property, and eventually their plan would be to extend that further north to 3rd Avenue. And so really the basis of their development is based on all of the property that they own bound next to that roadway and some small portions of city property. For instance, we own this property down here to the south of that proposed street, and we also own the pond to the north. With that, I guess we can jump back to the documents that were presented and use those drawings as the basis of the discussion.
Jamie, do you have anything you want to add to what Shane and I've said?
Well, we did purchase a piece to the north, so we'll all end up going to, go to 3rd. And, when we met briefly when we had a meeting, well, that was a couple months ago, where we come to this conclusion that this is kind of what we wanted to lay some things out. Is that road possibly being a collector? And with the additional costs of that being a collector, and then if you go down prior to you getting here, Mayor, I'd spoken to the prior mayor a little bit. I know there was quite a little interest in potentially having a park on the very south end of the property, which there's a pretty good chunk of city property that we have to cross Willow Creek there and tie into Willow Creek Drive. So we just wanted to throw some different options out there that to see if the city, if at all, or is willing to participate in any way.
Shane, this hasn't been to the Plan Commission yet, has it?
No.
Shane?
Yep.
I haven't been involved a lot with the master plan of late. How does this fit into the overall development?
Good.
The master plan development.
Thank you for asking. Our comp plan talks about using 31st Street, which bounds this project on the east, as a minor collector, which would propose a 80-foot right-of-way, and it can either be divided with a center-left turn lane, or it can be non-divided, or not divided with the center-left, but have shoulders on the side. We have two different standard sections that we would potentially use in that collector. The first example would be functioning almost exactly as 19th Street functions over on the east or west of this property. That has a center left turn lane function in it. And so with 31st, if that's where we choose to put it. Now, one of the questions the developer is posing to us is, in lieu of making 31st Street a collector, is this other route through the Stromseth East Addition, would we want to consider that as the collector road instead of, in other words, use this meandering road through here as the collector rather than use 31st Street? Now, our comp plan talks about having a collector in the neighborhood. It doesn't, and it specifically calls out 31st Street. That doesn't mean that that's what the end has to be, but that's what it's intended now. And that's, collector is intended to collect everything from Willow Creek all the way north to 25th Street. So that's, a full mile to the north.
To 26th?
Ultimately,
that's 2 miles.
Up to 81 crossing. Yes, I guess
2
it
miles.
would be. But 14th, it would collect
Right.
up there.
A couple questions I have is I've been a part of the the discussions about making 31st a collector street of some sort. If you look at, I don't even know what the street is, but if the proposed road that is in here were to continue up to 3rd Avenue and then from 3rd Avenue north along that half-mile line, you get halfway up there and now you're running into an already developed area. So the collector aspects of it now are gone unless there's a major rerouting of it up there or some major change, which isn't going to happen.
There is
correct?
a alternate route up there now to work around that obstruction in the development, I'll call it. I mean, where that old farm, what would have provided for that collector route is now bouncing to the east of that property and continuing north.
Which is more in line with 31st, isn't it?
Yeah, I think it would be.
Yeah.
There's another map in the packet, which is better to look at that. If you could, yes, that one there that Pete's bringing up. I guess it's kind of hard to see, but you can see where it goes north of 3rd. The road becomes more straight. It's pretty windy through the subdivision. Then it more or less straightens out and goes on the east side of Eastwoods. And then when it gets to 14th Avenue North, there is a development there already. And then it would move back east again and go up to the north from there.
Jamie, is this a residential or a commercial development that you're looking at putting in?
The south side will be commercial, and then the second piece is going to switch to we're in transition to residential in the distant future.
Okay.
If we were to go through this, at some point, aren't we going to have to redo 31st anyway? And isn't that going to entail at least one bridge that's going to have to go through there anyway? If not two?
31st has a set of culverts underneath it now that accommodate Willow Creek. They will need to be evaluated and potentially upgraded if 31st Street is to be improved going further north. I don't know at this time. Of course, that's out in the county, not in the city. But either way, 31st Street will likely get developed up to 3rd Avenue, as it's shown, because that's where it is now. And this roadway through the Stromseth East Addition will likely have a road development similar to what J&J is presenting us. But whether they're one or the other will be a collector, and the other one will be more residential or commercially driven, not a full collector's size road.
Yes, Councilman Roby.
Just an opinion here. I think historically the city has not done a good job of planning these roads. You know, to pick up on Mike's point there, we don't have those north-south thoroughfares that go straight. If we could redo 19th Street, we'd do it a lot differently today than the way it's laid out. All the curb cuts, all the driveways, you know, it's not a great collector street, so to speak. So whatever we end up doing here, I hope we just do a better job of planning for not just 5 years from now, but 25 years from now, because the city's growing northeast. And I hope that street doesn't look like 19th Street right now, because we won't be able to handle the traffic.
If I look at the layout here, the first thing that comes to my mind is every piece of property the way we want it isn't necessarily should have the right to be developed in the manner that they'd like unless they pay for it, in my mind. So we got a piece of property here that the city's going to be asked to pay up to some amount. I question whether we should be doing that. There is, based on what I'm looking at on here, there is plenty of access that would go out to 31st Street, which would still allow access to the area in question without having to cross over and having all that commercial traffic then come out on Willow Creek Drive. So from an engineering standpoint, are we better off that commercial traffic coming out to 31st and managing it out to 212, or are we better off dumping it onto Willow Creek Drive, which is what we want to be a more of a retail type commercial development area? Do you see what I'm saying, Mayor?
Yes, and the comprehensive plan does contemplate 31st as the main collector route for this region, and the DOT would like to not have it connect to 212, so the comp plan shows it connecting into Willow Creek Drive and further to the east from where this development would come out. Changing the designation of the collector route will change how we treat this subdivision. And if this is the collector route winding through the curved path through that subdivision, we would anticipate no driveways on there. Cars would be accessing the collector route via roads, not driveways, which is what Don was talking about. And that's how 31st is more or less laid out now, but it's out in the county. It's a gravel road. It's not developed. It exists, but it's not developed yet. And it's a straight shot. It's, I guess it would require us to go back and look at our comprehensive plan and make a change in that if we were to say that this is a collector route. If that is, I'm not sure if that's the angle that because it's a collector route, then the city would pay for part of the road.
And I'm not, I don't want it to be a collector. That's not what I'm here to say. I just know on our prior discussions, that's kind of what you guys were pushing it, that it's just by the time 31st gets done. Ideally, that's a no-brainer that the collector should go up 31st. I don't want it. And, that's the uniqueness we have with that property is we're not looking at heavy industrial. That's where we're looking to transition that into retail and really dress that up around that lake and clean that up and really try to make that a nice area out there is what our vision is in the future.
So you would rezone the existing industrial area and
yes.
You wouldn't have industrial zoning in there at all in its full
right.
developed condition.
We're not looking to
okay. I see.
No industrial.
Mayor, if I may.
Yes.
I honestly think that to give you a decision tonight, I don't know that would be responsible for us to do. To say that we think, we could do this. And I think this is going to require some detailed discussion with people from planning and zoning, our folks here in the Planning Commission, as well as perhaps some of the council members moving forward to really examine this and look at it, especially if we're talking about committing taxpayer dollars to it. I think we've sort of not so far back dropped the ball a little bit on some of that. And I think that's something we really have to do before, because I know you don't want to proceed and spend a bunch of money, to develop this or move forward with plans if you don't have a green light from the city. But just so everybody knows exactly what it is you're looking for, so it's all clear to everybody and what the costs. I know you've got some costs associated with this already in the note that you gave us, but that's what I'd like to see moving forward with this to give you a more educated answer to your question.
And that's why we're here, just to kind of kick this discussion off and not burn up a whole bunch of time just to get this in front of you guys, so it's kind of out in the open. And like I said, initially it's what if any participation, just like I said, because it's unique with on the south side on the curb, there is a pretty good chunk that there's probably, is there 11 or 1,200 feet of road roughly that'll be going through city property there, which is kind of unique. That's why we just bounced a few different ideas off as far as discussion.
Yeah, and I do think, I just want to say too, I think it's really important that we look at this and how it fits in the master plan, how the city of Watertown intends to grow and develop with roads as well as the different types of development and the zoning that we're intending to use for that.
Yeah, good comments. Anyone else? Does that give you something to go on, Jamie?
Yes, no, thank you very much. It's just trying to explain to you guys kind of where we're looking at and coming from as far as what our intentions are. Because for us, that's a master plan too. It's not something, once again, we're going to come in and do this fall. We're going to go bang this out. This is it's a several year deal, and we want to do it right because, like I said, it's been a real eyesore, and we're looking at getting it cleaned up. And I think it's got the potential to really be an asset and a unique piece to the city of Watertown if we work together and do this thing right.
All right.
That's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we are bumping up against the council meeting time, and the next 4 items on the agenda, I think, are all on the consent agenda for the council. These are all bids which are within the budget, and we're anticipating awarding to the low bidder. So we really don't need to hash these out. Generally, you don't have the authority as the council to award to anyone but the low bidder unless you have a real strong reason to do something else. So these are kind of consent items anyway. So I think we'll just skip them for now. And I don't think there's any old business. Is there any new business anybody wants to talk about? We don't have a need for executive session, so I'm going to entertain a motion to adjourn so we can take a little break before the council meeting. Okay, we've got Lallam and Bueller. All those in favor? Those opposed? We are adjourned. So we'll come back at about 5:30 for the full council meeting.